Hello students, Dr. Todd here. I'm really going to try to make Science 8 relevant as we're doing our virtual learning. And well, no better time to start than this morning. So I was walking and I decided that it would be a great opportunity to actually have our first guest speaker. So today I'm actually going to be interviewing my father, Bill Todd, who is a retired scientist. And as I was walking, he mentioned that he had an interesting fossil, and I thought he might share it with us. He's going to be asking us some questions about the fossil. I'm going to make some comments, and he'll tell us a little bit about the fossil. So this is just a great opportunity to get a different perspective. I hope you enjoy it. So here we go. Retired scientist, Bill Todd. Thank you.
Yes, I'm here and I'd like to talk about this fossil. I've had this fossil for a couple of months, but obviously it is much, 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 much older than any of us. And when I found it, I bought it at an auction for $2. And I was really intrigued by it because of the imprint of the organisms that are on this material. I'd like to ask a few questions of you to begin with. First of all, in looking at this, do you think this might be a plant or an animal? And if you think it is one or the other, why do you think it is a plant or why do you think it is an animal? Another interesting point about it is how old do you think this might be? Another interesting point is that if you look at this rock from different angles, the question becomes, are there other organisms below it or only found on this top surface? If we look at the edge of it, we might get some clues as to what it is and whether or not there are layers of this.
Mr. Todd, would you like me to turn the fossil on its side more or less?
Yes, turn it on the side if you can. Now, looking carefully at this, do you notice any differences in the way the material seems to be presented to us? How does it look when we look at it? Does it seem to be uniform or does it seem to be in layers? And if it is one or the other, how do you determine whether it's in layers or not? Turn to the other surface. Now, in looking at this surface, do you notice any difference between the first picture you looked at and this surface? What differences do you note? Also notice that there's another chip out of this sample. What do you look and see when you look at the chip? Another question we might raise, and something you need to think about, is this. Are we looking at the bottom of this, or are we looking at the top of this sample?
I've never really thought about that in terms of when I've looked at fossils myself, whether actually which side was which, what side was up and what side was down. Can you tell us a little bit, Mr. Todd, about, or in your best judgment, what kind of rock do you think that this fossil is made of?
Well, first of all, it's an imprint. We really don't have any solid remnants of this fossil. So what we're looking at is an imprint of it. And in my best estimation, we're looking at a deposit of calcium carbonate or limestone. In this particular case, this limestone probably is of water deposition. So it settled out of the water, and in doing so, trapped these organisms in the layers of the mineral. This mineral is, in this case, it's relatively hard, not real hard, but it's solid. It doesn't flake off very easily. If you put a drop of vinegar on it, which would be an acid, you will probably notice that it will bubble. And that's an indication of the fact that you have a mineral that reacts to an acid, and the bubbling is carbon dioxide that is being given off. So what we have here is a mineral, a sedimentary deposition that trapped this organism in multiple layers. So when you look at it from the side, you can see it's layer after layer. We don't know the top from the bottom, but we do know this. From the bottom to the top, it was put down in layers over time. This was done over who knows how long. It might have been a year, it might have been many, many years. And in all likelihood, it was over a very long period of time. So as a result, we have this fine specimen of a fossil. I've looked at a lot of fossils over the years, just like most of us have. I have never, ever seen a fossil like this one, ever. One of the things I would like the students to realize and think about is the fact that this is out of water deposition. In other words, there was probably a lake or a stream in which this mineral and these organisms were deposited. I have no clue as to where this came from. And unfortunately, many people find fossils, and in the process of finding them, they don't have a clue as to where they came from, especially if you found them in a river or something like that, because they could be eroded from far away and deposited from a great distance. In this case, this I found at an auction, and I have no clue as to where the person ever found this piece of material. It might have come from any place in the world, and it ended up in my hands. Thank you. Have a good day and enjoy your study of science.